Good morning, YouTube. It is 10 a.m. in the great state of Texas, and today we are trying to get rid of all of these scrap projects that I have laying around the garage. So I literally put this together about 4 months ago. It's just a scrap piece of pine. I did this for another project and just never got around to doing it, and it's been laying in the corner forever. So I love working with pine because it's one of my favorite woods. It's very soft. You can do a lot of different things with it. And I thought, since it's Super Bowl Sunday, you guys are literally watching this on the Super Bowl. Not a lot of people are going to be watching YouTube, I would think, but we're just going to go ahead and do something super simple so we can get back to watching the game. So I've learned a lot from my mistakes of my previous videos. Always drill pilot holes and do not screw in your faceplate too fast. So that's essentially all we're doing here today. So super easy project, but we're going to try to take some simple pine and make it into something a little bit more interesting. So, Super Bowl Sunday, we got the 49ers versus the Chiefs. I think a lot of this video is just going to be talking about maybe what's coming up on the channel for the rest of the year. So, I think Kansas City is going to win. Patrick Mahomes went to Texas Tech University, which happens to be in my town where I live, of Lubbock, Texas, and the entire town is basically rooting for the Chiefs. So, but if the 49ers win, I'm going to be excited about that either way, as long as the Cowboys don't win. Not a big Cowboys fan. I go for Houston. But, so, most of this project was already done by the time we got to this point. So the cylinder shape was already done, and this literally took 2 seconds to actually square up, and now all we're doing is finding down the edges here, and we're going to go ahead and get everything taken down and then just make a mortise. So the theme for this year, I think, is just going to be working on improving my woodworking skills by making lids. A lot of the project, actually 99% of the projects that I've done for the past 5 years have not had a lid on it. And I think if you put a lid on something, especially if you're like making bowls on a lathe, I think that just adds something to it. So it's just another skill that I should have developed a long time ago. I feel fairly comfortable just making regular bowls, but I think if we put a lid on it, it makes a little bit better of a project, especially when you're doing something as plain and boring as pine. I love working with pine, and I really don't have an issue with it, but this gives me another opportunity to work and make lids and just improve my skills overall. So all we're doing here is taking the parting tool, separating the two pieces here. That went fairly well, and then we're just going to square up the actual portion of it that's going to become a bowl, and then we're going to make another mortise so that we can reverse it on the chuck, and then we can actually gouge it out and turn it over and make a bowl out of it. So this part took no time at all. I learned from the previous couple of projects. Interesting thing is, next week project is going to be a lot more interesting than this, but it's essentially going to be in the same kind of theme, and the battery is fully charged on the drill, so this came off no problem at all. And now we have that reversed onto the chuck, and now we're just going to make sure everything is nice and even, and then we're going to start gouging this part out. So I remember like last year somebody made a really rude comment about working with pine wood, about how I wasn't a real woodworker, which I've never claimed to be a real woodworker. But pine's really easy. If you're just getting into woodworking, pine is definitely something that I recommend. It's super cheap, it's easy, it's probably one of the cheapest woods you can possibly get, and it's really fun to work with. So work with pine. You can always do something cool with it. So here we are, got everything built up, and now we're taking this over and just gouging it out. This took no time at all. Really easy, really smooth, no hiccups, nothing flew off the lathe, and we're just gouging it with the large carbide, and then we're just going to take the square carbide tool and then just basically gouge it out with absolutely no problems whatsoever. So super excited about this one. In spite of how easy this was, it still looks really cool. Even though this project from start to finish took me maybe an hour and a half, and I think that's being generous about how long it actually took. Yeah, an hour and a half, and that was just basically coming back and forth and just, taking off the lathe, doing all the other things that we have to do for it. So we went from 50 to 80 grit. I did not do a lot of sanding because we ended up burning the pine, so there's not a big reason to do a lot of fine sanding if you're just going to burn it. So once we got the actual bowl portion, now we can start working with the actual lid portion of it. So flattening everything down real nice and smooth, getting everything nice and even, And now we're going to start the process of actually attaching the lid to the actual main body of the project itself. And here I am just trying to gauge how well everything is going to attach. And this part literally took no time at all, getting everything nice and even. And then I'm just coming back and stopping the lathe and starting it, and then sizing everything down to kind of how we want it to be. So that part, no problem whatsoever. And then we're just squaring everything up, and then we're going to make another mortise, flip it over, and then we're going to actually make the lid portion of it. So there we are, just kind of adjusting the camera, and then you guys can see everything from start to finish here. And then I'm just kind of guessing how big the mortise needs to be. And I've been doing woodworking for about 5 years now, so I've kind of become a little bit of an expert on how big this portion of it actually has to be just to fit onto the lathe itself. So all we're going to do is stop it, and then sand it, and then flip it over and actually gauge or make a top for it. So anyway, still going strong here. Now we have it flipped over. Only bad thing is like the mortise on the other side of it takes away from a lot of the aesthetic of the bowl itself, because you have to essentially work all that material down. But the square carbide does a majority of the work, and we're just taking off just as much material as that we need to, just so that we can flip it over. But not a whole lot of problems. That's why I like working with pine. It doesn't give you a lot of hiccups. There's not a lot of issue, and it's super easy to work with. So now all we're doing is sanding it down, and you can see all these beautiful yellow wood chips. Pine wood. I love working with pine. I don't care what anybody says. It's one of my favorite woods to work with. And you can see here, this is essentially what it looks like. It looks really cool. I really like how this looks. So if you're just starting out, or if you just want a fun project, do pine. And now one of my favorite things to do with pine is burn it. Because man, if you don't burn it or stain it or color it or do something with it, it looks super duper boring. So any chance I get to burn something, this looks really cool. I like how this looks. It just gives it a nice aesthetic. So this part took no time at all, and then we're just opening it up and then just burning the top of it and getting everything nice and charred. And then we're going to come back, and I didn't show this part of the video, but I ended up hitting it with some lacquer, and that part took no time at all. So by this time everything is nice and dried. Put some lacquer on it, and then we just put this little peg in there. It is a light bright peg, but the lacquer is already dried, and everything's nice and neat. And just take some 15-minute epoxy that's on that popsicle stick, and then we're all done, and then we end up with a beautiful project like this. And I love how this looks. It's something simple. Yes, it's boring, it's pine wood, but this was really a fun project to do because it was so simple and it didn't cost me a lot of stress. Fun fact, that little peg came off. But hope you liked it. Hope you got something out of it. Hope you guys enjoyed the Super Bowl, and I'll see you guys in the next one. All right, peace. All right, so project is done. And this boring pine wood, sometimes you can make really cool stuff out of pine, even though it's a boring wood, nobody likes to work with it. If you just add some details to it, it actually turns out pretty good. But this one, pretty easy. I love working with pine because it's super soft, super, you can do a lot of different things with it. I'm echoing in my headphones here. But this cool little dude didn't go to waste. So cool little one. Obviously we did another lid because in theory, for the foreseeable future, for the rest of the year of 2024, we're primarily just practicing lids, bowls, and just making cool little stuff. So boring pine made it a little bit more interesting. Obviously we put the little light bright peg on top of it. It actually fell out during that last part of it. So overall, pretty happy how this one turned out. We did rosewood or Purple Heart last week. And this week we just, I got all this scrap wood I need to get rid of in the garage. So instead of throwing it away, I'm trying to find something to do with it. So anyway, hope you guys liked that video. So you guys are watching this during the Super Bowl, obviously, so I don't imagine a lot of people watching this video. So that's fine with me. Fun project. It's all about attendance. I've, got a streak going. So anyway, hope you guys liked it, and I'll see you guys in the next one. All right, see ya. Peace.